This is a GK Media podcast.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wellth Talks with myself, Garry Kelly, Niall Leyden and Pádraic Ó Máille. We're going to dive straight in and talk to you today about the importance of peer-to-peer support, aka getting involved ultimately in a mastermind group. And Niall and myself are in Smácht, which is run by the man himself, Pádraic Ó Máille. Just to tee it up, if you want to get more information on Smácht, you can follow Pádraic on LinkedIn or head over to his website, omaille.ie. Pádraic, firstly, can you tell us about Smácht? And then I want Niall and myself to tell the listeners why we joined Smácht and the value we get from it. But tell us firstly, for those who don't know, what is the mastermind group Smácht?
Okay, the origin of it is, Gary, I've told you this one before, February the 5th, 2011. Niall has spoken on prior Wellth Talks about how bad things were in the big economic depression back 2008, 2012. Well, about 2011, I had a number of clients who really were at rock bottom. And they asked me one day to facilitate a session in the Castle Oaks Hotel in Limerick. I'll always remember it, on the 5th of February. And I brought him into a room, put him around, and I said, what would make this a good session? And they said, if we could survive in business. And I said, you know, for a year, for 3 years, 5 years. And they said, no, if we could survive the next month, it'd be a victory. Things were that bad. And I went around the room and I said, well, what do you need? What quality more than anything else do you need to survive in business during this horrible recession? And almost every single one around the table said, we need more discipline. And then they give me a filthy look. And always remember Paulie O'Connell, not the rugby player, but Paul, who's he's CEO of Cricora Mills in Limerick, brilliant businessman. He said, I need discipline, Pádraic. And he gave me a dirty look. And I said, what's the dirty look for? And he said, we know we need discipline. We just hate the sound of the word. And I said, oh, and they all get me, yeah, that's the same. And Paul, to his credit, if you trust a group, it'll come up with the solutions. He said, Pádraic, is there an Irish word for discipline? And as it transpires, Gary and Niall, there is, and it's called Smácht. And in Connemara, it's a word infinitely richer than discipline. It means control or mastery. Micheál Murray would say, Chur Joe Canning smachter and Leroy. He controlled the ball. And so we said, yeah, that's it. We'll go for Smácht. We'll see, does it bring us through the next month? And then I began to ask him about what would some of the disciplines be. And one of the disciplines we inadvertently agreed was to meet once a month for a half day. And in the heel of the hunt, Gary, that group, many of them are still meeting 11 years later. Yeah, they not alone survived in business, but they've thrived. They're shooting the lights out. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned Anne Tobin in particular, who I think Anne, as we speak, she is the top leading salesperson in Acorn Life. That's top right. Out of 500 people. And you might ask, and I often ask, what got Anne to where she's gotten? She does a few simple disciplines daily. Nothing massively, but a handful of disciplines daily. So look, that's where Smácht originated on that particular day.
And I think it's evolved into multiple.
Yeah, it's evolved into
now.
multiples. I know during the recession there were 300 people, and almost all of them survived and they thrived. And that was the origin of Smácht, so it was. Super. Yeah. So a simple little discipline. Now, you might ask, were we the originators? I'd love to think we were, but I mean, the disciples, Jesus had a mastermind group 2,000 years ago. The definitive kind of proof of why masterminds work is probably revealed in that fabulous book, Think and Grow Rich. It was published by Napoleon Hill in 1937. And he had interviewed the most significant minds in the world, people like Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Harvey Firestone, presidents, the Rockefellers. And he discovered they all had one thing in common. They were part of a mastermind group. Hill coined the phrase, a mastermind is any two minds that come together is more powerful than one mind on their own. So two people constitute a mastermind group. One great example was a photograph, an old photograph. They were called the Vagabonds. And that included Edison and Ford and Firestone, who invented the tires, the President of the United States. They would go away.
What a group to be.
Yeah,
a
what
serious
a group. They
Yeah.
would go away, and there are photographs of them sitting, talking, drinking. But they exchanged this universal mind of more than two people coming together. So it has been proven through history that masterminds work.
Wow, brilliant. Niall, every time you talk to me about Smácht, and I'd say every time we meet, you would bring up Smácht in one way or another, you light up.
It's a community of peers, of colleagues, of business owners, but of friends. I mean, we've made lifelong friends. And for me, we get so much more than, Pádraic has been quite understated and humble and grounded in everything you just say. But I mean, the power of them meetings every 2 weeks, I mean, there's no hiding place. In terms of, I suppose, there's 4 things I get from it. Number 1, motivation. The motivation is sensational. And you won't always have great days or weeks or months or quarters, but you're on show, you're on stage every 2 weeks. You know the questions are coming. There's 10 of your peers. What are your victories? What's going well? What's not going well? What didn't you do? What are you going to do? And I mean, you have to prep, you have to answer the questions. So you have to then oneself be true. So I mean, when you look at the motivation and you look at some of the entrepreneurs and some of the people that we know that have sold or exited or are transitioned into the third act, and whether it's 100,000 or 10 million, it's irrelevant. They're 2 arms, they're 2 legs, they're humble, they're grounded, they're balanced, they're just wonderful, brilliant, super people. They have a couple of denominators, like family is so important. It was probably the genesis behind Wellth Talks, if the truth be told, Pádraic. And that is the reality of it. Because whether it's health, number 1, family, number 2, wealth, number 3, or business, number 4, not in any order of priority. So the motivation, like I think back with great credit, being from Sligo, and one of the ladies I'm privileged enough to be in a group with is Larissa, who hails from Sligo, lives in Donegal, who were beaten, during the summer by Kerry, which was terribly unfortunate. But like, their business has grown, has rebranded from Accountants Online to Kenore, took over Crow Park for a day, had Jerry Hussey in as a guest speaker, had the rebrand in the Conrad. I mean, that's one of many,
one of the
many,
biggest online accountancy
the
companies.
biggest. I mean, what's that program that the kids used to watch, to Infinity and Beyond? What's
Toy Story, is it?
and like it's just thinking big. So like we have a brilliant business, Atlantic Wealth, but I mean, when you're getting out of your comfort zone and you're looking at the Kenores or just without getting into names, I mean, so the motivation for me, I think, is just
And then the education. The education you're getting from
correct
people who have walked so many different paths in business. And as you said, someone could be earning a turnover of 100 grand a year, someone else could be 10 million a year. And the figures don't matter because everyone's on the same level field, but we're learning so much from real people's stories. The person who has experienced something is there in front of you telling you their story. It brings so much value.
That's a really brilliant point, Garry, because the education, it's not what you're going to read in the Think, Grow. It's not the one thing that we talk a lot about. I mean, the book that we talk about, but for me, the education piece is real life in the trenches, on the battlefield. There's a lot of vulnerability shared in a safe environment. I mean, the challenges that all of the businesses, ourselves included, face. So, I mean, that education, you can't buy that. I mean, it's on tap. You're only ever a phone call away. You're in trouble or you have something on your mind.
Yeah, you have someone you can ring.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's, and I mean, the third thing is just the accountability. The accountability, and you talk about Smácht and discipline and, choosing your heart and the road less travelled. And, do you want to, you talk about be a sheep or be a lion. And I mean, people, you look at behavioural biases and people being overconfident in their own ability and trading too much and buying high, selling low and following the trend. You've instilled I think Pádraic, to be fair, has instilled in us all that little bit of confidence to back yourself and just say, it's okay to go left field and do things a little bit differently. Because if you always do what you always done, you'll always get what you always got. So, that for me, and I mean...
And it is the thing as well as... sorry, we'll let you in a minute, Pádraic. But it is the thing as well, if you're surrounded by people who are high achievers. You know, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. So when you're in a room with people who want to achieve big things, are big thinkers, and that was, for me, was the reason why I wanted to get involved and join Smácht, because I knew the room was full of like really, really big business leaders in Ireland, and I wanted to be part of that conversation. I wanted to be in that room. I wanted to see how these people operated and spoke, and the way that they, you know, planned out their week and everything like that. Like, what was their magic formula? But it was this, to be in this room with just big thinking and no one afraid to say what their big audacious goal is. And like that for me is dynamite. It's magic. It's wonderful. So again, like even I've noticed myself, you know, in the last probably 5 months of being in Smácht, like even the meetings I'm having with the team here, we're thinking so much bigger. We know what we want now. We're not afraid to say it, and we're laying out the path to achieve those goals for ourselves collectively, because we're thinking big, and we're allowed to think big, and we're encouraged to think big, and it's so freeing.
But isn't it the reason the 3 of us are here together today? I mean, there's power in a group, there's power in a tribe, and there isn't too many groups in Ireland. I would say publicly and privately, it's the best bar none. I mean, because you can have 2 people can create a mastermind. We look at our 2 good friends up in Donegal, you know, Claire and Annette, who I think still every Monday morning to the meet, still for their coffees. I mean,
that's just an ongoing example of 2 girls who were in a group in Donegal. They meet for a coffee and they have a little process and they have an agenda, but it's Smácht. It's the discipline to meet and stick on their business, and they're just 2 outstanding businesses.
And you get a call to that point, Pádraic, offline. The amount of conversations you'll have offline, you'll say something. Yeah. You might struggle with saying it. You know, I think back to one of our quarterly get-togethers in the Porter Shed, where we all had to get up and present. And I mean, there was just the magic in the room, and those people had done it and hadn't done it. But the calls that you get offline is just, I mean, I go back to, you can't buy that. The authenticity, people are all striving towards the same things under the pillars of which you talk. And the get-togethers, I mean, Ballyvaughan is coming up hopefully now. This is September. You know, we meet every quarter. So, I mean, it's just, and it goes back to sport. You look at all the good football teams, the soccer teams, the rugby teams. I mean, the Joe Schmidts, the Irelands, although Australia, thankfully with the Lions. But I mean, sport, business, life, you got to get the right people on the bus. Yeah. You got to get, and we talk lots in our group, or certainly I'm sure with all the groups, there's 10 in ours, this energy audit. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? As Pádraic said to me on more than one occasion, you know, you got to show up. You look at Alex Ferguson back in the day. You look at Brian Cody. You look at, you know, the good and great and wonderful sports people that were the Tiger Woods, the Rory McIlroys. You know, you got to show up. Showing up in terms of your energy and giving back and helping businesses, because we don't have all of the answers. But I mean,
that's a good point. We don't have all the answers, and it's a safe place, which you have said. But it's a safe place to say, you know, I don't have all the answers, or I'm not okay because, you know, I'm scared about something, or I'm worried about something, or, you know, you have that safe, supportive, confidential environment where people get what you're saying. For me, one thing always was in business, you know, if you're talking to a friend and they're like, how's business? You might talk about a problem you could be having, whatever it is. If they're not in business, they don't really get it. They have a very different perspective. Whereas you're in an environment where everyone gets it because they've either walked that path before, or they're walking it now, or whatever. And it's a safe place to say, you know, I'm not sure about what I'm doing here, or should I? And it's just getting that support, or, you know, the place where you can just talk and say it as it is. And sometimes when you're even just talking out the issue and hearing yourself saying it, the solutions is coming and so on. But Pádraic, talk to me about Joey the Clown, is it? Who's Joey the Clown?
Yeah, Joey the Clown. It's a lovely story. I've heard, it's not mine, but I've heard it. This man goes to his doctor and take it in Galway, and he says, I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm feeling down. I'm feeling depressed. And the doctor, a very kindly man, he listened to him and he said, I'm prescribing you go to the circus down in the swamp this afternoon. And
down in the Claddagh.
Down in the Claddagh, yeah. And you go and you see Joey the Clown. He said, I prescribe Joey the Clown for so many of my patients, and they come back and they laugh for the hour and they forget about their troubles and they forget about their woes, and they're absolutely new people. And he said, I'm prescribing now. He said, it's 10 to 3. Get down to the matinee in the Claddagh this evening. And the poor old devil looks at the doctor and he says, I am Joey the clown. And I love that story because you mentioned it in a Wellth Talks a few weeks ago, Garry, about as business people, we're expected to put a good show on to everybody. You know, we got to go home and say, yeah, business is flying it. We got to keep it up with the banks. We got to keep it up with our team, with our customers. And it is a bit of a show and it is a bit of a facade and we do have to do it, yeah. I think it's really important that we have a safe haven where we can come together and say, it's okay, I'm feeling knackered, I'm feeling afraid, I'm feeling frightened, I'm not feeling great. It's really important to have that space and call it therapy or whatever. Therapy's got a really bad name in this company. I often think it's group therapy, yeah? And I've said it in another podcast before, a problem shared is a problem halved. And the benefit of that, sharing, letting go, as you say, with peers, because we understand each other. We've been there, and if we haven't, we will be. And there's a great understanding there.
Yeah. Super. So I suppose the question that we need to ask ourselves, if we are in business, who's in your circle? Who's challenging you? Who's supporting you? But it's so important that those who are supporting you and challenging you are also bringing a lot of positivity into your life. Isn't that fair to say?
Yeah. I sometimes get criticized, Garry, because I begin every Smácht session with what went well in the last 2 weeks. And you could argue that's a waste of time. It's a pretty wussy question. But Maureen Gaffney, probably the leading psychologist in Ireland, she had a brilliant book written called Flourish. And in it, she says that for every negative we hear about ourselves, we need to counteract that with 3 to 4 positives. I think that's really, really important. And we don't tend to get that in life. When you go in, you talk about getting on your emails, it can be criticism. It can get badly beaten up. So I think it's really important that you build that sort of a peer supportive group. And yes, it is heavily biased in favor of giving positive affirmation. And positive adulation. Because I think, we've often said it in Ireland, we're not the most positive country. We're very quick to knock. And there's any amount of knocking out there. This is a ritual every 2 weeks, a safe ritual where you can come in and get positive acclamation and affirmation on what you're doing.
Yeah, brilliant. And to sum it up, Niall, CEO of Atlantic Wealth Management, has life gotten better for you by being a member of Smácht?
Transformed, unquestionably, from good to great. And that's just the way it is on every front. Health, wealth, business, family. Because of the accountability, the motivation, the support, the network, the getting together, the energy. I mean, what more can I say? That's just it. It's transformative.
Brilliant. Says it all. Niall, thanks million. Pádraic Ó Máille.
Thank you. Garry.
And thank you for listening to this week's episode of Wellth Talks. And hopefully it gives you a bit of motivation to take a bit of action and get a good circle. Join a mastermind group. And as I said, if you want to get more information on Pádraic's Smácht mastermind group, head over to his website, oneself.ie.